At Camp David, President Benjamin is sparring with Mike, who is the Secret Service agent leading the Presidential Protection Division and a former Army Ranger. The president's wife Margaret and his son Connor are there as well because the family is getting ready for a charity event. Mike helps them with every detail, proving he's a close family friend and not just an employee. When it's time for the event, it starts to snow heavily in the area. Mike organizes his bodyguard team to protect the president during the trip and the family gets split. Benjamin and Margaret are in a limousine while Connor and Mike follow them in an SUV. Suddenly a branch falls on the first bodyguard vehicle, making it to slip on the ice and block the road. This causes a chain of accidents with the cars behind it. One of the Secret Service SUVs falls off the bridge and the limousine gets stuck on the edge. Margaret hits her head and falls unconscious. Thankfully the rest of the cars stop just in time. Mike and the other bodyguards run to way down the back of the limo, giving Mike the chance to open the door. Benjamin tells him that Margaret's seatbelt is stuck and the bodyguards try to open the other door too, but it's jammed. The president doesn't want to leave without his wife, however the car is about to fall so Mike cuts Benjamin's seatbelt with a knife and drags him out. The limousine then falls off the bridge, killing Margaret and the driver. 18 months later, Mike is still haunted by his guilt. He doesn't socialize much and it frustrates his wife. Mike is currently part of the Treasury Department because he's been removed from the presidential security team. The director of the Secret Service Lynn tells him that Benjamin doesn't blame Mike for his choice. He removed him from the team because seeing him reminded him of his wife's death. Meanwhile Benjamin is called to an important meeting. All his advisors are worried about the tension between North and South Korea and Benjamin wants to avoid a war, so he agrees to meet with South Korean Prime Minister Lee. Extra security cars gather around the White House for the minister's arrival and Lee brings his own men as well, including former U.S. Secret Agent Dave. At the same time a large gunship is found near North Virginia and 2 fighter jets surround it to ask it to land. The gunship responds by shooting at both jets, causing them to crash on civilian houses. Then the gunship starts making its way to Washington, D.C. and soon the alarm is raised in the White House. Benjamin and Lee are taken to the bunker while visitors and staff are escorted out of the building. All guards get armed and run to their positions as turrets appear on the roof. Soon the gunship reaches the city and opens fire, killing thousands of civilians. Cops and soldiers try to fire back from the ground but they get shot down as well. At the office, Mike watches everything through the window until his building gets evacuated. When the turrets open fire, the gunship uses a special defense mechanism that blocks every attack. On the streets, cars are exploding and people are panicking. Instead of running, Mike stays back to help civilians escape. Then the gunship flies above the White House and shoots every visible guard to death in just a few seconds. At that moment an American jet arrives and shoots a missile strong enough to go through the gunship's defenses. The gunship is hit and catches on fire, slowly going down and hitting the Washington Monument before crashing on the ground. The monument breaks and falls down in big pieces, also killing civilians nearby. For a moment it appears to be over and Mike approaches the White House to check the damage. Suddenly a bus blows up and causes the cars nearby to explode too. All the curious bystanders run away in panic, but Mike notices 2 suspicious Korean men approaching the gate. He manages to shoot one down but the other one activates a bunch of explosives. The resulting explosion creates a gap in the gate. Then a group of North Korean terrorists that came undercover with Lee's arrival reveal themselves and start shooting gas grenades at the White House's front yard. Using rocket launchers, they cause several more explosions and bring down the front security so they can storm in. A fight ensues between the Secret Service and the terrorists, with both sides losing more and more people by the second. Even the dogs are released and get shot down as well. Mike joins the fight and kills as many Koreans as he can as they continue to advance. Suddenly a sniper appears to kill cops from afar with perfect precision. However Mike sees her and shoots her in the head. The Pentagon sends military reinforcements and when they hear about it in the bunker, Dave reveals he's a traitor. He starts killing his former co-workers and Lee's men join him since they're terrorists too. A fight ensues but it's clear the Koreans have the upper hand and quickly kill most of the president's staff. Benjamin is punched and choked by Kang, the leader of the terrorist group. Outside, 2 trucks carrying more terrorists arrive while followed by the cops. In the middle of the chaos, Mike sneaks around and makes it to the entrance, only to watch an old friend die. Suddenly all the Koreans lie down and Mike sees it as a sign to hide. Unfortunately the other agents aren't as fast so when the trucks open their doors and the gunners open fire, most of the agents and the cops are shot down pretty fast. The few survivors go back inside and close the doors, but the Koreans blow it up with another missile. Mike runs inside as well and has to watch how 2 fellow agents are killed right in front of him. With no time for grief, Mike rushes to hide before the Koreans come inside to take over the building. They even bring another truck with plenty of weapons for the job. In the bunker, a Korean hacker takes over the computers and initiates the external lockdown. Gunfights happen in multiple corridors as the terrorists check every room and every corner to kill all the guards until there are none left. At the Pentagon, they lose contact with Secret Service and realize that the White House has been taken. Moments later the military is surrounding the building but they can't find a way in because of the lockdown. Reporters appear in the area too, spreading the news and worrying the whole country. Suddenly the Pentagon gets a video call from the White House bunker and they watch in shock how Lee is killed on the screen. Then the terrorists threaten to kill Benjamin too as Kang demands the soldiers to stand down, so at the Pentagon they have no choice but to obey. After the call ends, Dave tells Benjamin to raise his hands. When Benjamin refuses, a staff member is killed on the spot so Benjamin cooperates to prevent another death. Then his hands get tied to the railing. On the roof, the terrorists take down the American flag and sends out a drone. Meanwhile Mike sneaks around the corridors and finds the bodies of his former co-workers all over the place. After the lights go out Mike bursts into the control room and quickly kills the Korean guard by stabbing him multiple times. Mike takes the guy's weapon and is furious to find a picture of Connor among them. Then he uses the confidential password to access a safe and retrieves a device that he connects to the computer. Using his thumbprint, Mike activates the special protocol and shuts down the system, which locks the hacker out too. Back to the bunker, Kang explains to Benjamin that he isn't interested in the nuclear launch codes. He wants to end the civil war dividing his country and help the civilians getting caught in it. Dave shows his support and Benjamin headbutts him for his betrayal, but Kang doesn't let him retaliate. Instead, he reminds his men to find Connor. Minutes later Mike makes it to the Oval Office and uses his password to open another safe to find an emergency phone. He immediately calls the Pentagon, where the Speaker of the House Allen has assumed the role of acting president. The army men don't want to trust Mike since he was fired from the Secret Service, but Lynn comes to his defense and Allen reminds everyone Mike is their only hope now. While taking more guns from hidden spots in the furniture, Mike shares all the things he saw in the corridors, like guards and explosives on the doors. He also tells them about the lockdown and says nobody will be able to come inside, so the Pentagon should use him to solve the situation. At that moment a terrorist enters the room and Mike immediately jumps on him to disarm him. Then the men start fighting hand to hand and after exchanging a bunch of punches, Mike kills the guy using a Lincoln statue. At the same time Kang calls the Pentagon again to ask the US government to recall the 7th Fleet from the Sea of Japan, to withdraw the American troops from the demilitarized zone, and to send him a chopper. If they don't cooperate or try to counterattack, he'll kill Benjamin and the remaining staff. After Kang hangs up, Lin starts arguing with the soldiers over what to do. They need to save the president and his son, but removing their troops could cause South Korea to fall in 72 hours. Benjamin decides to contact other countries before making a decision. In the bunker Kang threatens the chairman of the Joint Chiefs Admiral until he shares his personal Cerberus code. Now they only need 2 more to detonate the US nuclear arsenal. Back to Mike, he calls the Pentagon and shows them the tattoo he's found on the dead man's body. Alan and Lynn tell him their computers have detected that the first Cerberus code has been activated, but the only way to stop the process is changing the codes manually on the bunker's computer. Mike realizes the terrorists want Connor to exchange him for Benjamin's code, so Alan orders Mike to find the kid and protect him. Although the bunker has no access to the system anymore, the hacker can still access the old security footage and finds Mike sneaking around. Dave explains who he is and says he isn't a threat, but Kang sends out his men to find Mike anyway. Speaking of Mike, he makes it to the president's bedroom and hears something in the walls. By the time the terrorists burst into the room, Mike is gone. It turns out he's entered a secret passage on the wall where he finally finds Connor. While he sends a message to the Pentagon, Kang tells his men that the White House is full of secret passages and makes them open fire. Mike makes Connor run while he shoots through the wall as well, managing to kill one of the terrorists. The passage drops Mike and Connor into another room, so Mike makes sure the coast is clear before guiding Connor to the basement. He removes a lid and sends Connor down a shaft while telling the Pentagon which entrance to watch out for. The army will have to act quickly because there are terrorists outside watching every vent hole. When a Korean man enters the basement too, Mike hides and waits for the right moment to surprise him from behind and choke him to death. Connor keeps on moving and is lucky to come out through an unguarded grill hidden by the garden plants. 2 American soldiers sneak around undetected to rescue Connor and quickly take him to safety. The Pentagon gets confirmation of this and Alan sends Mike to save the president next. Then Alan appears on TV to tell the general population not to panic because they'll solve things soon. In the hallways of the White House, Mike surprises 2 terrorists and fights them until he knocks them out. Then he ties them both up and asks for information, but the terrorists don't take him seriously and laugh. Mike immediately kills one of them and stabs the other's leg to make him talk. The man tells him Kang's name and that he's with the paramilitary organization known as Koreans for United Freedom. 40 commandos breach the gate and 28 are left. Mike shares all this information with the Pentagon, who knows Kang is one of the most wanted terrorists in the world. They didn't recognize him because nobody knew his face. His father was executed for crimes against North Korea and his mother was killed by an American landmine, which explain why he wants revenge against both countries. It was Kang who planned the bombing of the British embassy in Seoul. The American army wants to attack, but Lin points out they can't do anything against the White House's tight lockdown. Mike agrees and convinces them to let him do some recon. While the terrorists install a bunch of explosives in the walls, Mike searches the hallways. Suddenly Kang's voice appears in his phone, mocking him for letting Margaret die and doing the same now with Benjamin. When Mike tells him he's rescued Connor, Kang threatens to hurt his wife. Mike hangs up and Kang sends Dave after him. Then Kang starts beating up the Secretary of Defense, who refuses to give up her code. Benjamin can't stand this much cruelty and orders her to say her code, promising they'll never get the last one from him. The secretary reveals the number and the terrorists enter it in the computer, which is detected by the Pentagon. Downstairs, Mike is startled by a shadow and pushes it against the wall, but he stops when he notices it's Dave because he doesn't know the truth. Dave pretends he's still on the American side, but while they discuss the situation he says Kang's name, which he shouldn't know. Mike immediately gets suspicious, so Dave punches him. Another fight begins and the men roll on the ground until Dave manages to disarm Mike. Then Dave tries to attack with a knife, but Mike is faster and stronger, so he blocks all the attacks and stabs Dave with his own weapon. After kicking him in the face, Mike asks for an explanation, so Dave explains he lost his way. Mike offers him redemption by taking out his phone so Dave can call Kang to tell him he's killed Mike. Now Dave can die in peace, so Mike ends his suffering. Afterward, Alan tells Mike they're out of time to stop the nuke, so they send out multiple aircraft for an aerial attack. The hacker finds them on her own radar and the guards on the lower floor receive orders to bring out the big weapons. Mike sneaks into the cargo room and discovers the Koreans have Hydra 6, a powerful next-generation weapon that was supposed to be American. However, the army leaders still refuse to stop the aerial attack. A few terrorists then enter the cargo room, so Mike starts shooting them down while keeping an eye on Hydra 6. Unfortunately, he isn't fast enough and the weapon goes out anyway. Hydra 6 shoots at a helicopter to make it crash. The other aircraft begin evasive maneuvers and shoot at the White House roof to try to kill the guards there. The American choppers aren't quick enough and several soldiers are shot off their aircraft. Inside, Mike finally manages to kill the last guard and runs upstairs after stealing a rocket. Meanwhile, Hydra 6 shoots another helicopter, which also crashes on the ground. There are only 2 left and Alan wants them to abort, but it's too late because these helicopters get shot down too. Mike manages to make it to the roof and shoots a rocket at Hydra 6 to blow it up. Then he tries to run but instead falls through a hole as the last helicopter crashes on the White House, causing a huge explosion and severe damage to the building. Afterward, Kang calls the Pentagon and kills the vice president as punishment for the aerial attack. He promises to kill Benjamin next if the Pentagon doesn't do what he requested, giving them 60 minutes to decide. Then Alan calls Mike to tell him they'll recall the troops, but Mike convinces him that it's a terrible idea, so Alan gives him 30 minutes to finish this before he gives out the order. Before going out, Mike calls his wife to assure her he's fine. Next, Mike calls Kang to tell him he's going down before blocking the bunker's comm system. A furious Kang and his men bring the secretary to the front door and make her walk out. Kang gets ready to kill her in front of the cameras, but at that moment a hidden Mike shoots one of the terrorists and distracts the group. While all the men are trying to fire back at him, the secretary runs ahead and is rescued by the army. Mike continues to kill terrorists, using a sniper rifle until he's out of bullets and changing to a small gun to shoot them up close. Unfortunately, Kang runs to hide in the bunker again, so Alan considers the fight lost. The 7th Fleet is called back and this appears on the news all over the world since it may mean a war blowing up soon. When Kang sees Alan has obeyed, the terrorists get ready to leave. Benjamin and the other hostages are chained up and dressed in black with their faces covered by bags. The terrorists dress like that too, so when they come out, the American snipers can't tell who is a good or a bad guy. The group leaves in the helicopter sent by the Pentagon, which barely gets to fly before it blows up. Everyone in the Pentagon despairs, thinking the president is dead. Mike watches the flames through the window and thinks it doesn't make sense, so he goes looking for Kang. His theory is correct because in the bunker Kang and his men still have Benjamin to use him as insurance. They hack the last code and activate Cerberus, programming the nukes to explode in their silos and destroy the USA. Then Kang detonates the explosives his men put in the walls earlier, which creates the perfect escape route. However, Mike is waiting for them there and quickly shoots 2 terrorists before jumping on the third to break his neck. Benjamin pushes Kang against the wall and starts fighting him for the gun, only for it to get accidentally fired. As the president collapses with a bullet wound in his stomach, Mike runs to Kang to start beating him up. He manages to land a good amount of punches before Kang brings out 2 knives, only for Mike to block all his attacks and easily disarm him. With only 3 minutes left on the nuke countdown, the men continue to fight. Mike grabs one of the knives and tries stabbing Kang, who after some struggle manages to disarm him too. Kang pushes Mike against the wall and starts choking him. But when he looks away to check on Benjamin, Mike uses this distraction to hit his arm and bring him down. Once he's broken that arm, Mike grabs a knife and finally kills Kang. Afterward, Mike runs to the computer and follows instructions from the Pentagon to finally deactivate Cerberus. The sun is rising outside by the time Mike and Benjamin leave the building. Connor reunites with his father and Mike gets to hug his wife. Repairing the White House will take a while, but an American flag is soon flying again on the roof, and Mike is given back his job as head of the presidential security team. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.